Hello and welcome to Rookie Recap, a show on UCTV Sports where we'll go through the 58 players that were drafted in the 2023 NBA Draft. My name is Julliana Bravo, and today we're going to go through the last 13 players that were drafted, and we have a lot to get through, so let's get started. Starting off with pick number 46, Seth Lundy. He hasn't played for a majority of the season, and he had his NBA debut in mid-December of 2023. He suffered an injured ankle at the beginning of 2024, but he's back in the game now. He's played 9 games in the NBA, 9 games in the G League, and averaging 34 minutes and 23 points on average, so he's doing pretty well. He's also a relatively good shooter, shooting 52% from the field and 44% from 3. Those numbers, I think, are pretty good for someone that's in the G League, and he's averaging 6.6 rebounds on average. So I think Lundy is someone that the Hawks can definitely benefit from, and I think we should expect him to be playing for the Hawks maybe sometime next year, depending on how they do this draft. He is on a 2-way contract, but like I said, I would like to see him play a few more minutes in the Hawks, especially because of the direction that they're going in. Drafted next was Mojave King. Now, he is a part of the G League on the Indiana Mad Ants, and he has played 10 games and averaging 9.5 minutes and just 3.6 points. So he's not doing too well, or he's not playing as much or getting that many points compared to the other players that are on this list. Overall, I think just he needs to work on his shooting a little bit. He's at 33% from the field and 25% from 3, which the three-pointer is a trend that we'll see through, later on in these players. But I think he just overall hasn't really had the opportunity to shoot a lot. So I'm wondering what his status will be in the G League. But I think as he plays more, he'll definitely grow as a player. Drafted 48th overall was Jordan Miller. He also hasn't played too many games in the NBA, just about 5 games, but in the G League, he is contributing a lot. He's played 17 games overall and averaging 30 minutes and 23 points, so that's pretty good. He also has 7 rebounds on average. Like most of these players, they're not adding too much of their time in the NBA. He is on a 2-way contract, and I have to say, this is kind of a side point, but the Clippers are actually a very exciting team, so I understand why they're not really using him and they're having him sit out for a couple of these games, but I think it's good that he is playing in the G League. He is contributing his time somewhere. I think overall, like the last player, he can improve his 3-point shot. He's about 29.2% right now, and I think if he improves that, he'll definitely become a stronger player in the NBA. Drafted 49th overall was Emoni Bates. He has played 15 games overall in the G League, averaging pretty good minutes and points, 35 minutes and 20.3 points on average. I think for the amount of games that he's played, he's contributed a lot, had a lot of points, a lot of minutes. He has had a few stellar games in the G League so far. One game in particular, he scored 32 points in 35 minutes. The last game he played in the NBA was back in December. So, I think for a lot of these players, like I said, they are on 2-way contracts. So I'm hoping that once they have a little bit more confidence on the court, they'll be able to contribute their time in the NBA. And I think Emoni Bates is definitely one of those players that we'll be seeing very soon if he stays healthy, because I think he has potential. Drafted 50th overall was Keontae Johnson. Now, he has played 9 games in the NBA and 16 games in the G League. In the G League, he's doing pretty well. He's averaging about 32 minutes and 20 points, and he's had some good percentages. I think overall he has about 3 personal fouls on average, so I think that's definitely a little bit risky sometimes, but I think if he stays with the Thunder, he'll grow as a player. I've said this in past episodes, but the Thunder are a relatively young team, and I think that's where they excel. They're able to incorporate a lot of the young talent and kind of mold it into something new, so I think if he stays with the Thunder, he'll definitely grow as a player there. Drafted 51st overall was Jalen Wilson. He has had some time spent in the G League and the NBA. So in the G League, he's averaging about 35 minutes and 19 points on average and shooting about 44% from the field. Not too bad, but He has played in the last 10 games at the Brooklyn Nets, so he's seeing a lot more minutes there, but not too many points. He's averaging in the last 10 games just about 5.5 points in 19 minutes. Not only has he contributed to some good wins, but he's also contributed to a few close games and some losses. So I think that really shows his diversity as a player. He can play in really any situation. Obviously, these last 10 games aren't a great measure of his skill or ability or his overall season, but I think I can see him becoming a stronger player, especially with the injury of Ben Simmons and his uncertain timeline. Drafted 52nd overall was Toumani Camara. Now, he does not have a two-way contract, contrary to some of the other players on this list. So most of his time has been spent in the NBA, and I think his time is relatively well spent. He's definitely improving as a player. His average in February is higher than his overall average and his average in other months. So currently he's averaging 6.9 points, but in February he's averaging 8.4 points. He also has the third most steals overall by a rookie, but I think where he just needs to improve, again, his three-point shot. I feel like I'm going to say this for every player, but I think that's just somewhere he needs to improve. It's at 29.9, again, not bad, but compared to some of the other players, I think it's something where he can grow. Overall, he's on and off the bench. Some games he's starting five, some games he's, sitting on the bench. So I think every game is different for him, and we'll see how the rest of the season and next year plays out. Drafted 53rd overall was Jalen Clark. He was drafted to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, unfortunately, he has been injured. He injured his Achilles, and there is an unsure timeline. The last time he was updated was February 12th, and it's been almost 2 weeks. So no report there. Hopefully he'll be able to bounce back whatever happens. Drafted 54th overall was Jalen Slauson. He has played 21 games in the G League with averaging about 34 minutes, just about 13.5 points, which isn't bad, but just a little bit lower compared to some of the other players on this list. He is excelling in other places. He has 8.7 total rebounds, almost 9 total rebounds on average, 1.4 steals, and 1.1 blocks. I think he could improve his three-point shot. I've said this for almost every other player, but he's at 27.3, and he's just making under one three-pointer on average in every game. So I think that's somewhere he can improve. Drafted 55th overall was Isaiah Wong. Now, he's a relatively shorter player compared to the average, but I think he fits really well into his point guard position. I think one of his games that proved this was when he shot 30 points in 31 minutes, which is a crazy ratio, and he had 5 total rebounds. Overall, his average is pretty good, averaging about 30 minutes and 16 points. Again, work on his three-point shot, but other than that, I think he's a strong player, and we could see him in the NBA later on. Drafted 56th overall was Tarek Biberovic. Now, he was drafted to the Grizzlies, but they ended up sending him back to his home team. I'm pretty sure in a 2-year time span, he's able to go back to the Grizzlies if they feel it's a fit. But overall, he's not playing too much over there. In his home team, he's averaging about 13.5 minutes and a little under 6 points on average. He is a relatively tall player, and I think he's strong, so I think he can fit really well into the NBA if he does practice a little bit more and get those stats a little bit higher. Drafted 57th overall was Tracy Jackson Davis. Now, he was drafted to the Warriors, not on a two-way contract. His stats are a little bit lower, but that doesn't really surprise me too much. He's averaging about 6.6 points and 12.9 minutes. He's played in 46 games and started in 3. And I think overall where the Warriors are doing a good job is that they're really able to integrate younger players like Brandon Pajemski, and I think they understand Tracy Jackson Davis's skill set right now, so I think that's why he's not playing too many points. But I think when the other players on the Warriors eventually do take a little bit of a step back, these rookies will definitely be able to integrate themselves into the team. He did say after draft day that he was a little bit frustrated with his pick number. He was drafted second to last, but I think overall it worked out for him. He has a 4-year deal and a 2 guaranteed seasons, so I think maybe in the future, maybe around this time next year, we'll see him playing some more minutes with the Warriors. Drafted 58th overall, and the last pick was Chris Livingston to the Bucks. Now, he has had some good minutes in the G League, averaging about 30 minutes and 14.6 points, but he hasn't played too many games, just about 9 games. He's not on a 2-way contract, again, contrary to some of the other players on this list. He's played 16 games in the NBA, just barely any minutes or points. Like I said, he's not on a 2-way contract, and he is actually has the largest contract of any last pick in the NBA history at $7.7 million and 4 years, the first 2 years guaranteed. So I think the Bucks are definitely planning on using him if they've contributed this much time, energy, and money to him. If he improves as a player, I can definitely see him on the Bucks and contributing some good points. And those were the last 13 players that were drafted in the 2023 NBA draft. My name is Julliana Bravo. This is UCTV Sports.